All right. Hi, everyone. We are here to do a presentation on AI-driven inquiry, transforming student engagement through the research process. We've given you our bit.ly. It'll be on every single slide in case you want to follow along or go at your own pace. We're here from Miami, Florida, Gulliver Prep. My name is Dee Febo, and I am at the upper school at the high school, and I'm the educational technology integrator there.
And I'm Margie the Quesada, and I'm also an educational technology integrator, but I am at another campus, which is the pre-K through 8.
And I'm Patty Wyszkowski, and I'm also with Margie at the pre-K through 8 campus, and I'm an ed tech integrator as well.
Welcome, everybody. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Our journey really begins when we had an accreditation team come in about 6 years ago, and they saw our curriculum and were seeing that there were gaps in the research process. So research was happening within our school. However, it wasn't happening at a systematic and a very, an integrated approach where it was being done at every single grade level. And so it was kind of not equitable. And so we went off as a team and we went out to conferences and we came across something called the Guided Inquiry and Design Framework. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of it. It's by Leslie Maniotes. And basically the Guided Inquiry and Design Framework is made up of 8 phases. Our teachers would take a look at their curriculum, take a look at the units that they have, and see which unit this particular framework could fit in. And so it is really a student-led project. And what teachers do is that in looking at their units, they find a concept. For example, at the upper school, in our biology class, one of the concepts is genetics. And so our students do a project on genetics. They get to choose what it is that they want to research. And from that, they go through all of these phases. The teachers do build background knowledge about genetics and everything that would be involved with that. And then students go on and explore topics. They then identify an inquiry question. We teach them how to gather sources. And all of this is done very collaboratively. So it's not just the teacher, it's really a team between the librarian, our information specialists, and our ed tech integrators, so that when they get to the create phase, we're helping them to learn all the different, ed tech tools that they could possibly use to create the project, and then be able to share it out in a manner that is understandable for their audience, whoever their audience is. And then at the end, they evaluate their process, they self-learn and kind of metacognize what it is that they've gone through this whole research process. And so through this GID framework, we were able to deploy it in our upper school, in our middle school, and our lower school. So at any given time in the school year, and that's what this graph is showing you, there's a GID unit happening in our social studies classes and in our science classes in the middle and the upper school. And the lower school, it's by units, depending on what the teacher had felt was, the particular or that group of teachers felt was, important to GID or go through the guided inquiry and design process. So our inquiry process basically needs to marry with our ed tech. And so we have a lot of inquiry tools already that we had in place, our whole library database, anywhere from Gale resources to Britannica to our Noodle tools. And then of course we would use things like Padlet, and we're going to get into this a little bit more. But we use all of those tools for students to explore topics, gather sources, and then using other tools to create, just like Book Creator or Screencastify or WeVideos or Canva, of course, to create their projects. And so I don't know if at your school, but this year at our school, AI was blocked for our students. And so the way we sort of kind of got around that is that we use tools that have AI already integrated in them to help teach students how to use the AI properly. And so we started in the different GID units because we felt like for sure we're going to be able to touch on every single student throughout all the grade levels. And so that's where this was born. At the upper school, just to give you an example, we have something called the National History Day, and really it's actually a nationally recognized competition. And so the National History Day gives you the concept already. And like this year, the concept was rights and responsibilities. And we thought, oh, what a great way to maybe start integrating AI by using something called Humy AI. Not sure if any of you have heard of Humy AI, but it is a really cool tool. It's definitely something that our students found interesting. It increased their engagement. Basically, the students can converse and have these conversations with AI historical figures. And as you can see, you've got like Leonardo da Vinci and Martin Luther King and Cleopatra. But as a teacher, you can create collections. And this year we created a collection for rights and responsibilities, and we curated the historical figures that they, could chat with. The cool thing about this chat bot is that it'll redirect students if they start going off topic, right? If they start asking questions like about Fortnite or something like that, right? It'll bring them back. But the really great thing was how it really upped the engagement and how students were interested in finding out more information and how to ask the right questions to really get answers about the inquiry that they had regarding rights and responsibilities. So that was really nice. Of course, we use Padlet, and I'm going to let Patty talk about Padlet a little bit more to curate some ideas. And then at the end, our students generate 5 different products. So it's either going to be a documentary, a 10-minute documentary, or they're going to do an exhibit where they present in front of, a poster board that they've created. They do get questioned by our teachers. And so they have these interview processes. They can create a website. They can also do a live skit and write a 2,500 word paper. And then these get submitted, they go and compete among our own community, and then they go out to the district, they move on to the state level, and we've had even kids go off to the national level for National History Day. So it's been a really great process. Our students actually find it to be, a bit challenging, but in the end, they loved having gone through the process, and they find it to be like a feather in their cap because it's like a resume builder for their college applications later on. So that's what we're doing at the upper school, but where the real magic is happening with AI and inquiry is at the middle school. So I'm going to let Margie tell you all about that. Thank you.
So now we move the computer
Yeah.
over to myself. Hi, everybody. I'm Margie. This unit that you're seeing here is really the first unit and project where the students used AI during the research process and the creation process. And they reflected on the left-hand side, you can see they reflected and they wrote down information in their student notebook, which we created on Google Slides. And then they used school AI and they explored different topics, learning about the legacy of ancient Rome. And once they chose a topic, they researched and they wrote a children's book based off of their topic. And the book was created on Book Creator. And they used Canva's AI magic media within that was embedded within Book Creator to create the images. They did the storyline, all of that. And then not only was AI used in all of this, however, the final result was then read to the 3rd grade students. And each of the classes went to the library and the 3rd graders listened to these books. And we chose the 3rd graders because in their language arts units, they were learning about ancient Rome. So it was a nice collaboration with the middle schoolers and the younger ones, and it turned out to be a beautiful event. So this is how the whole, I guess, how the whole story happened. The social studies teachers and I, as an EdTech integrator, we met to discuss which unit would be the winning unit to be the research unit. And once ancient Rome was identified as being the one, then we decided that we wanted to incorporate AI somehow. Our team had just been to FETC, which is, as many of you probably know, is a big EdTech conference in Orlando. And it was used a lot, but there was a lot of gray in student usage. There was a lot of teacher usage, and we wanted to figure out a way for the students to use it, but there were also those issues of, privacy, collecting data, things like that. I had come across a site called School AI and noticed that it didn't collect any information. And I started looking at the things that School AI could do, and one of the things it did was create these spaces. And it just so happened that there was a space on ancient Rome. So I thought, this is perfect. We can do this. The teacher loved the idea. And then we had to convince our ed tech director to go with it, and we could pilot it. And it did end up working. Luckily, one of the great things about School AI was the fact, yes, that it didn't collect the information, but the teacher could monitor what was going on in the classroom. And it was very, very helpful. I'll show you that in just a minute. Beforehand, before we used AI, the students used Padlet to explore different topics on ancient Rome. So there were topics on military, on generals, on government, things like that. And they clicked on it and they wrote in their student notebook a couple facts why they were interested. And it was, they liked it because we've done this project a couple of years now. But we wanted, again, to up the engagement, and we were hoping that AI would really do that. And it really did. So this space where the students went in, it gave a link. The teacher sent it to them on Google Classroom. And as you can see on the screen, this is the teacher view. So you can see that, the students are engaging. You can see the little happy faces saying things are going well. And it gives a summary saying, this student is engaging actively in gladiator discussion or engineering and infrastructure. This one's saying, making connections between Fortnite and ancient Rome. Clearly that student tried to divert, and then the AI brought it back. On the right-hand side, it's very nice because it gives a summary as to the content that the student and the chatbot are back and forth going in between, which again is great for the teacher because it gives a nice overview as to what is going on. The teacher could also, if you click one of the three dots in the middle, you could also view the chat. Which is also very important in terms of, accountability. You have those discussions with those students in terms of prompting if they're not understanding the topics going back and forth. We were in there with the teacher and we were walking around and we were saying, if you're not understanding, or if it's too high level, ask the bot to put it into bullets, or ask for a different topic or something like that, which was very, very helpful for them. One of the great things that we also found, besides this tool, was the fact that the AI was very efficient in moving this project along. In a research project, obviously this takes a lot of time. The students then reflected on this, and normally this explore phase, meaning where they were finding these topics of interest to them, would take about 2 to 3 classes. And when we introduced School AI, it brought it down to 1 because they chatted with the bot for about 45 minutes. We do have block scheduling at our school. And then the last about 20 minutes were a reflection. And we did use Padlet as an easy place for them to reflect. Something we noticed when the students were reflecting was that they were copying the information that they learned from the chatbot into the reflection so that they could prove that they learned whatever it was. And we had to stop the class and say, listen, this reflection is not for summarizing. We want to know, yes, what you learned, but what you thought about it, how you felt interacting, like things that you've learned, those types of things. And it's okay that you didn't memorize anything. You can go back and look at it. We asked the students to comment, and they, started realizing that this wasn't meant to be an activity where it was copy paste, that type of thing. So once the inquiry questions, once they picked a topic, they then created an inquiry question, and they had to start doing research. So they went into different sources and, our subscriptions that we have, databases and things like that. But they also asked if they could continue to use School AI for information on the topic. And we were a little hesitant because we thought, like, why? I don't know, they really should be using journals and sources and things like that. But we thought, what, we're in the middle of a pilot. Let's just try this out. Let's see, these are going to be valuable skills anyways. So let's go with it. So we allowed them to use AI as a source. And one of the tools that we use at our school, our paid subscriptions, is it's a citing research organizer called Noodle Tools. And sure enough, they were with the times, and they had an AI response button, so the students could cite the AI. And again, we worked with them with prompting. And one of the best things about this part was we told the students, ask the sources, ask the chatbot where you got that information in whatever questions you're asking the bot. And the bot came back and summarized whatever it was about engineering, I believe it was. And it was a Stanford college level article where the student would have never found it. The student would have never understood that high level, that article, and it put it in terms that a seventh grader could understand. So that was, a nice positive that came from that as well. Moving forward this year, ancient Rome moved on, and ancient Greece was the unit for the seventh graders for social studies. But School AI evolved, and now you can create your own space, whereas before it was already there. This year, as you can see on the slide, we created our own space on ancient Greece, even though I'm sure one exists, but it was more specific to what the teacher wanted from the student. And, notice you can see, like, we basically told it they're going to be asking questions about these types of topics. Please be sure that the students are researching at least, or you're discussing at least 4 different topics. We previewed it to make sure it looked pretty good. And then we did the same thing. And we found this was an even better way to do it, to create your own space than to have the pre-made one. Final projects, the students, like I said, created these children's books, which turned out beautifully, as you can see from those covers. I'm going to go into a couple of them just so that you can see what they look like. And again, they did use Book Creator. We're opening. Yes, everything's working. Great. So for example, this is one of the 7th graders. And as you can see, they beautiful. I love these. They wrote pretty much what they started doing was they wrote a basic script on Google Slides or on paper. We also told them not to copy information from the bot and things like that, and from their articles. And they created this fictitious story about their topic of interest in ancient Rome. And then within Book Creator here, they clicked an edit button, and Canva is one of the apps that works on the back end. So we showed them how to use Canva's magic media, and showed them how to prompt the AI with specific details, and explain to them that if you're doing, for example, here, this little girl in a soccer uniform, you can't just say little girl in a soccer uniform. You need to say little girl or young 7-year-old with brown hair in a blue soccer uniform, kicking the ball, things like that. And then they learned how to be very specific with their prompting. Then they learned, once they got the image, if it wasn't exactly how they wanted, they learned how to overlay images. So here, this girl, for example, did a time portal in the background, and then put her soccer player girl there and rotated her as if she's going through the portal. And then we had them record their voices, which was also pretty nice because it's kind of like, kept it, a moment in time there. But the projects overall came out beautifully. The 7th graders were so proud of their work. It took them a long time, as you can probably imagine. The 3rd graders were so excited to hear it, and they were beyond impressed and said, "You made that? How did you do that? Did you draw it?" And they explained, "No, we did it with AI." "What? You were allowed to use AI?" All those things. So it was really, really nice to, all the adults in the process too, people came in and looked at it, and was, again, overall very impressive. And not only impressive from that standpoint, but it brought together those grade levels. And then it also was showing the kids were really excited about their projects, and AI really helped boost that. It wasn't the end all be all, of course, but it was a nice, definitely a nice factor. All right, and now our last presenter, Patty, is going to talk about how we use it in a couple of other classes.
Okay, hi everybody, this is Patty. And I'm going to go over 2 more projects where we were able to transform the learning using AI. So this one's the progressive era, and it started with 8th grade originally, and now it's moved into a 6th grade lesson with curricular changes. So I just want to go over real quick. We used Canva this year to kind of like redo the notebook a little bit, make it a little more engaging for our sixth graders, making them a little more excited when it comes to research and learning. So, I mean, just a little something here to show. Here's a Padlet that the students used for the Explore. They're looking for topics, and we kind of divided it out into immigration, reform, industrialization, because there's a lot of information in progressive era. So this is kind of what they used, and they're still using as their Explore. Where AI came into the picture was when they did the create. So when they were in eighth grade, they would create a documentary, and they used WeVideo for that. And so here's a sample of
The progressive era, a
documentary.
time in history when many technological advancements were made. Some of these include the first phones, the first typewriters, and the first airplanes.
So, and they were great. The eighth graders created these beautiful documentaries and collaborated with our mass media department to learn how to edit videos. When the sixth graders took over, we kept it with the documentary, and it really didn't work out. It was just it was too much. It took too long. So the teachers wanted to transform into something new. So we thought an interactive drawing might be the way to go. So we knew Canva had their AI. We'd used it before. And when we went in, our idea was to use Magic Media. However, we happened to see a new button on the Canva homepage that said, make me an image. So we decided to explore there, and we found Dreamlab, which is also an AI image creator in Canva. And we tested it out, and we thought it was perfect for what we needed. So the teachers wanted the students to create an image that kind of told the story of what they researched. And then they had to add links to like a timeline or infographic, to their citations, and to a website that was informative. So here's an example of that. I'm going to go to the one that we showed there, which is, where was that one? Here. Okay. So we had to really, I mean, these sixth graders learned, obviously, that, you know, in order to get the image that was really in their mind, they had to be very specific. And so, it took a little bit of time, but it was a really great opportunity for them to learn how to prompt an AI and how to get what was kind of in their vision onto the screen. So here's a sample from somebody's report on Henry Ford. So here's his image was he wanted a two-part thing that showed, the original cars and what the cars look like now. Here are the links. They went ahead and they created an infographic also in Canva. And these tabs. Their sources. And then the last one was a website. Oh, no. Okay, well. So, and then they were all put on a Padlet so that they could all look at each other's infographics and interactive drawings, and kind of, give each other feedback and kind of learn from each other about the research. So that was how we used AI with the progressive era. And then in science this year, we decided also to kind of change things around. There's a unit in sixth grade that talks about earthquakes and plate tectonics, and they used to use a Padlet. Is it here? No, it's not here. Just like that for the Explorer. It was separated out into the different continents, into the different building techniques that were used, and it was fine. But as Margie explained, it took a long time. The Explorer would take 2-3 days sometimes because they had to go through all these articles. So we thought maybe we had seen that Padlet had AI incorporated into it now. So we decided to ask the Padlet AI to create an interactive map showing different earthquakes that had occurred there. And we kept prompting it to add video of it, add, more locations, add, whatever information we needed for their Explorer. And then now, instead of that Padlet, they have this. So now they have the map right in front of them, and they're able to go in and choose, an area that they think is interesting, click on it, and then you'll have, information about the earthquake that occurred there and whatever else you add into your prompt. Once they did that and they had all their information, then they were given another Padlet where they went in and they had to put in their reflections. There was instructions on the side from the teacher. They put in their information, and they were also asked to comment on other students' information. So they had to add their information and then read about some of the other ones, maybe in another continent that they didn't research, and comment. That way they got to kind of like get even more information without having to put in all of the research work and find their topic. So that also cut on the time, and they were very excited about it. It made them, look at the research a little bit different, made it more fun. So just real quick, I wanted to show how easy that was to do. When you go into your Padlet and you click make, right away you're going to see the AI pop up, and we just use the map. Once you click on the map, it's the same thing. You just add whatever your topic is. Ours was in science, but you can add whichever one it is, your grade, and whatever information and details that you want to put into that map. And then when the map is created, even then, you're able to go in and customize. There's a button on the side, which is not appearing right now, but when you go in, you click it, you can customize it and it'll show, like the prompting. So you can then say, please add 1 video per location, or please add, more information about whatever else you wanted to add about. And it'll create a brand new, it'll, regenerate and add it all into there. Okay, and I think that's it for us.